Hey guys, Yips here, coming at you with another video, and this one is going to be about the new raid tier and talking about which talents we're going to be running on the bosses. I know a lot of you are interested on that as you haven't had a chance to test the bosses, or you just don't know which talents to pick. I'm going to help you out with that. So there's a few different talent setups we'll be running on this boss fight that I'll be going through. I'll talk about the talent setups first because they're pretty straightforward, and then we'll move into the bosses and which talent setups will align with that. So first off, we have Malefic Grasp. This is the standard Warlock single target spec with MG, Contagion, Soul Harvest, and Soul Conduit. We're going to be using this on 3 of the bosses on Heroic and 2 of the bosses on Mythic difficulty. Just your standard single target, and then the next talents that we'll be running is going to be an Add Cleave talent. You just swap MG for Writhe and Agony. This will be used on the majority of the bosses in the new raid tier. You can swap Soul Harvest for Phantom Singularity, although I do not recommend that, as you have to remember what Affliction is good at is killing adds, using that Wrath of Consumption, using that Reap to do additional single target to the boss, which is not something a lot of other classes can do. They have to sacrifice single target to do AoE at a given time, or they have to sacrifice AoE to do increased single target. As a Warlock, you just do a little bit of extra cleave damage and gain a lot of single target. So this is obviously a staple. The last kind of niche talents that we'll be using for this tier is going to be switching Contagion to Absolute Corruption, and then using your level 60 talents as your raid group needs. If you need a lot of AoE, run Sow the Seeds. If you don't, Phantom Singularity and Soul Harvest will be the choice for you. So let's go into the bosses, talk about a little bit about them, and then also what talent setups you should be running. So for the first boss, we have the World Breaker. That is just a straight up single target boss fight. Going to be running MG, Contagion, Soul Harvest, Soul Conduit on him. Pretty straightforward on this guy. Patchwork fight, nothing much to talk about. Next boss is a Cleave fight. Fellhounds, you're going to be fighting 2 bosses at all times. That means you're going to be running Writhe and Agony. Eventually, we could see Siphon Life start to enter the meta on Cleave, but not until we get the new 4-piece. Until we get the new 4-piece, definitely be staying with that Soul Conduit talent, as your UA offers you so much DPS due to the 4-piece, as well as just how much damage it deals. So Cleave fight. Next one is Antorus High Command. This is a single target boss fight that spawns 3 adds consistently. These adds do not need to be focused down, meaning you should not run an add killing spec, but more of an add cleaving spec that assists you with single target. Let other classes that are better at AoEing than you deal with the adds. What you should be focusing on is putting your agonies on them for additional shards, maybe dotting them a little bit for some extra damage if your group needs it. But aside from that, using those additional shards back into the boss for single target. So obviously a cleave setup is going to be very strong here, as Writhe and Agony does allow you to have a little bit more freedom where you don't have to drain soul as much, but still maintain a high amount of single target DPS. Definitely going to be the talent choice for this boss. The next one is the Portal Keeper. This is also going to be a fight that spawns a lot of adds. You can run Sow the Seeds on this boss if your guild does need it. I highly do not recommend that you do it, as the adds are not deadly. Your guild should be able to handle them just fine. I think Soul Harvest is going to be the definite choice for progressing Warlocks on this boss fight, as it's going to give you the most utility in terms of DPS overall, considering that most fights, the faster you can kill the boss, the easier it is going to be. This boss spawns a ton of little imps that need to die, and then there are also mini bosses throughout the fights that spawn that you'll have to go kill. So rather than Agony, just a standard cleave talent setup where you can just kind of fly around, keep your dots out, and keep a good amount of DPS going. I think these will be the talents that will be running for this boss fight. Next one is going to be a tower defense boss. This boss is Erinar. She spawns a lot of adds around the room that move down towards her and will kill her if they reach her, and you have to kill them before they get there. This is a boss where you're going to be running Absolute Corruption for sure. There are a bunch of little adds that spawn that need to be AoE down, so some Warlocks might think the Seed talent is good. I don't think the Seed talent is good. I think being able to be really mobile on this boss fight is super important. So the Seeds can obviously deal with those little adds very well, but the little adds are probably not going to be the problem. The problem is going to be the bigger health targets, so Phantom Singularity can help you deal with that, as well as Soul Harvest. So I think we'll be running a talent setup variation somewhat like this on this boss fight. Rather than Agony, Absolute Corruption with Soul Conduit. You could run you could run Phantom, you could run Soul Harvest. You'll just have to feel it out and feel what your guild needs in that level 60 tier for a lot of these bosses. But rather than Agony, Absolute Corruption definitely going to be a staple of this boss. Next one is going to be a single target boss fight. Iminar, you're going to be running Malefic Grasp, Contagion, Soul Harvest, Soul Conduit. This boss is just straight up single target. You're going to be moving back across a platform, just, single targeting him down. Just a patchwork boss, nothing fancy to do with the talents here. Next boss is Kingrath. Now, this is going to be a boss where it's majority single target with sometimes add cleave. You can kind of think of it like Sisters, but instead of the Moon Talon, you're going to be getting a big Annihilator or Decimator or Demolisher. These adds will have a lot more health relative to the little bird. So, due to that, I think we'll be running Wrath and Agony on this boss. I'm not 100% sure. You might be using Malefic Grasp. It just depends on how long that ad is actually going to live and how much value you'll get from that, as well as the movement. So I think I'll probably at first be running Wrath and Agony because it is easier to play on that boss fight. A lot of the times playing Malefic Grasp, you have to find situations where you're able to drain soul, and if you're new to a boss and trying to, deal with mechanics, having that ability to move and not lose as much of your potential DPS is really important. Plus, Wrath and Agony will just give you a clear benefit on that 2-target cleave. So again, I think Wrath and Agony will be the spec to go with these talents on this boss fight. The next boss, Varimathras. This boss is a single target fight on Heroic and a absolute bonkers of a cleave fight on Mythic. So obviously on Heroic you're going to be running that MG talent spec, and on Mythic you're just going to change MG to be running Wrath and Agony. Nothing too much to say here. On Heroic she doesn't spawn adds, and then on Mythic difficulty, whenever she moves through darkness, the shadows lingers and attack players until killed. This is basically the ad that she spawns that needs to die. So yeah, Mythic difficulty, there will be tons of adds that you need to kill. On Heroic, not so much, just run the standard single target MG talents. The next boss, your first council fight, similar to the Fellhounds of Sargeras, just going to be running that Wrath and Agony talent spec. You're going to be 2-targeting this entire fight, so it's going to be pretty strong for Affliction, going to be a pretty enjoyable boss fight. Nothing too much to say here, just a standard cleave boss. The next boss, Affliction, will absolutely shine on this boss fight. Okay. Alright, so the next talent spec we're going to be running on Agrimar is going to be Absolute Corruption with Wrath and Agony. This boss basically spawns a lot of adds around the room. He spawns a bunch of little burning embers that you need to kill, as well as some big adds. Basically, as a Warlock, you're just going to be like Burning Rush, running in circles around the room, spamming Agony and Corruption on all of these adds, and just dealing a mass amount of damage. As well as Absolute Corruption might slow the adds. I'm not 100% sure, but either way, this is definitely going to be the talent set you run on this boss fight. You're going to be getting so much value out of Absolute Corruption. You can kind of think about this fight as Helya in Phase 2, when all of those tentacles spawn and you can kind of fly around and put AC on all of those tentacles. It's just so much potential DPS. Now, if for some miracle reason your group can deal with those burning embers without you running AC, you can run Contagion with the Wrath and Agony talent, or even MG, but most likely you're going to be wanting to run this sort of a talent setup on this boss fight. The last and the final boss is Argus the Unmaker. On this boss fight, you're going to be using Malefic Grasp, Wrath and Agony, Contagion, Soul Harvest, and Soul Conduit. This has been a pretty big staple for a lot of the final boss fights in the raid tier because it tends to be cleave, there tends to be single target, and Wrath and Agony is excellent at both. So these are the talents you're going to run on this boss fight. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm just going to take 2 seconds to mention that Safuz is going to be excellent on the majority of ad fights in this raid tier. Also, Pride As is probably the legendary you want to look to upgrade, simply because it's good on AoE and cleave. Hood is also a great option, so, just looking into this raid tier, Safuz is going to be an excellent legendary. Pride As, Hood are going to be good staples at the start, and, Execute Ring is just going to be something we kind of always shove in that slot. So, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Hopefully it gets you a good idea of the talents we'll be using in this next raid tier, and I will see you guys later.